Okay, now moving on to example 2, we're going to be talking about revolving a region about a line that is not a coordinate axis. So our question asks us to find the volume of the solid formed by revolving the region bounded by f of x equals 2 minus x squared and g of x equaling 1 about the line y equals 1. So the first thing that you need to do is really understand, you need a picture of a diagram of the problem that you're trying to figure out. So we're going to draw this out really quick. So 2 minus x squared, that is going to be a graph that's upside down. You know, we're up here around 2, and we have our graph of g of x equals 1 right here. So it's this region here that we're interested in. And we're revolving around this line as well. We're revolving around the line y equals 1. So in this case, it's our volume again is pi times the integral from a to b of our radius of x squared, or you might write it as r of x squared. So we need to know what the radius is, which is, in a sense, how far from our revolution axis that our graph is. So if we think about this, we're rotating this region here around the blue line. So we're going around this way. So how do we describe this distance here, right? Because we're making a circle based off of that. So our radius here that we're looking for, okay, is going to be our top function, which is 2 minus x squared, minus this line 1, right? Because that is right below it. So that is what our radius is going to be. So it's kind of like if we shifted down our parabola down 1. That's going to be, in a sense, what it's going to be. So our radius here is actually, you know, our 2 minus x squared minus 1 is the same thing here as 1 minus x squared. That's what we're going to get here. Now we've got to figure out what these points are going to be. You know, where are we integrating from? So what we need to do is we need to set 2 minus x squared equal to 1. And we should get here that x squared is going to equal 1, so x is going to be positive and negative 1. So we're going to sit here, this is negative 1, this is 1. So we have our bounds, we have our radius function, so we can set up our volume function here. So our volume is going to be the integral from negative 1 to 1, pi times the integral of negative 1 to 1 of our radius function, which is 1 minus x squared squared. And so this is the same thing as pi times the integral of negative 1 to 1. I'm just going to expand this out. This is going to be 1 minus 2x squared plus x to the 4th dx. That's just boiling this right here. So now I can go through and evaluate this. So I'm going to get pi times 1 integrates as x. Negative 2x squared is going to be negative 2x cubed over 3. And this will be x to the 5th over 5. And we're doing that from 1 and negative 1. So let's plug our answers in. So if we plugged 1 in, we would get 1 minus 2/3 plus plus 1/5. And then we have to subtract away, plugging in negative 1. And so this will be negative 1 cubed times 2 is going to make a -2. So we'll end up adding 2/3 here. And then we finally add on -1 to the 5th power is the same thing as -1. So we're going to be actually subtracting 1/5. Okay. And so we can go ahead and simplify as best we can. So we're going to have pi times, so let's see, the ones. So we've got a +1 here. We've got a negative and a -1 here, so that makes 2. We have a -2/3 and a -2/3. Excuse me, another -2/3. So that is going to be -4/3. And then we have 1/5 minus a -1/5, so that makes 2/5. And so we want to go ahead and again try to simplify this. So we're going to get pi times 2 is the same thing as 30/15. And you can do this on your calculator as well. This will be -20/15. Oops, negative. Oh, -20/15. And this will be 6/15. So all in all, we have pi times 16/15, which is the same thing as 16/15 times pi. So that is the area that we're looking for right there. Again, really what you need to focus on is finding the area function that you're trying to integrate. Because once you do that, you can use your technology in order to check your answer or find your answer. First, you need a picture. You need to decide the parts that are important. The parts that are important to you are your bounds and your radius function. If you have those, then if you get those correct, then you should be able to get the correct answer using your technology, and then that way you can always check your algebra work later. Without those, you will not be able to get the answer correct. So make sure that your first step is getting a good idea of the picture, getting a good idea of what your radius function is going to be, and then also finding the appropriate bounds for your problem. And for this problem, again, once you go through and simplify, you should end up with 16/15 times pi.